It's your show. Take it away.
All right. Hello, everybody. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, where right and left come to be reasonable. My take: we are missing what matters in the Middle East, or more specifically, who. First, the latest reporting. There is no word yet from the White House about military plans and strikes in Iran, and to me, that's okay. Time could be a friend here. Apparently, there is no rush. There is a very tough call to make, especially if there is a non-lethal alternative, and I am told that that may be in the works. The president today fed my suspicion.
Mr. President, have you given the Iranians an ultimatum?
You could say so. They know what's up. Maybe you could call it the ultimate ultimatum, right? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? I may do it, I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death.
Is it too late, though? Do you think it's too late to now?
Not really. Nothing's too late. They do want to come and see us. They want to see me in the White House. That's a big statement.
What a stupid question. Is it too late? I mean, are we just going to play gotcha all the time? You know what I'm saying? I'll tell you what's a mistake. To play the president's indecision as weakness. Why are you in a rush to get involved in a military situation? Stop playing gotcha and constantly trying to make the other side look bad. That is extreme thinking. We need to fight that, not feed it. You want a valid criticism? Why is everybody so quiet on the question of whose call it is to make a military move here under the law? Deafening silence from Congress. Or they're just basically saying, yeah, we gave our power to the presidents, that they can do the military thing. Just come to us if it lasts too long. That's not the law. That's not even the War Powers Resolution of 1973. Congress should pass a resolution tomorrow telling the president, well, I guess it's Juneteenth, the day after that, that the president has to come to them first before engaging our military. The House is hiding. The Senate won't even get a briefing on Iran until next week. The Senate has more urgency about what was known about former President Biden's health than what's known about the regime's nuclear program. Are you kidding me? More proof of extremism. All about advantage all the time. Makes me wonder if that's why some are against stopping the regime. Maybe they like extreme rule. Just look at what's resonating in this moment. At a time that we should be debating tactics, legality, we're all about gotchas. MAGA is in a civil war between hawks and isolationists, and the banter is more about middle school than the Middle East. This is what's passing for impressive exchange.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay.
What's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
Predominantly Shia. Okay,
No,
this is
no,
cute.
it's not
Okay.
even. You don't know anything about Iran.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
No,
You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out
I'm
if it was
saying
a good
you
idea
don't
to kill
believe-
General Soleimani, and you said
don't
it was bad.
believe-
First, Senator Cruz must have forgotten that Tucker Carlson doesn't like him. But I don't understand the celebrating of this moment, to be honest. Why is the left celebrating this? Because MAGA's eating itself? Why is the right seeing this as a legitimate reflection of the state of play within the MAGA ranks? Look, I have no problem with being against military intervention in Iran or anywhere else, but you need to have a better answer to nukes in the hands of a religious zealot that hates us than how many people live there. I mean, maybe Carlson has a better answer, maybe he doesn't. I asked him, he's welcome here to discuss it whenever he wants. But the fact that this is the leading take on the regime, that this is what's driving millions of clicks that then echo over the entire media as everyone tries to get a piece of the algorithm, this is the problem. Here's the bottom line for me. As punchable as that face may be, this is the face that we need to focus on. Ayatollah Khamenei. This man is part of a regime that has been actively trying to kill U.S. officials, including our president. No one's talking about him. This guy wants to kill you. This guy wants gays and trans mutilated. He wants women as chattel, and he wants to bring it here. Last year, the DOJ announced charges against an Iranian agent for a plot to kill the president. They also charged and arrested 2 U.S. citizens whom he allegedly recruited to kill an American journalist who's a critic of Iran. This is what the regime does. The Ayatollah is an old 86, a bad man who has gotten worse in the 40-plus years he has led the regime, twisting the religion into a weapon, making it almost impossible to get rid of him, and his cause is our demise. Now, that is not merely my opinion of his goal. It is his. Okay? That's who you don't want to be, and that's who you don't want coming after you, okay? Now, bombing is clearly what that madman is betting on, because he wants the next level of combat. He wants to look like he was victimized so he can strike back. And that's why he said the Americans should know that any U.S. military intervention will undoubtedly be accompanied by irreparable damage. True. The U.S. entering in this war is 100% to its own detriment. Not true. We don't know. It's a mixed bag. The damage it will suffer will be far greater than any harm that Iran may encounter. Now, here's why that could be the case. This guy is the head of a bunch of zealots who are fine with a one-to-one exchange, okay? Meaning, I'm okay if I die trying to kill you. That is a bad situation to be in. We learned it in Iraq at the beginning of the war on terror. It made things very difficult, and that's what this guy is about. Now, some here are going to say, well, what did America do to them? You know, is this our fault? Does it matter? Are you okay with terror attacks here or dead American troops over there because of how we handled the Shah in the late 70s? Last point. People should be more concerned by how our society is creeping toward extremism than merely just questioning why and how America has opposed extremism in the past. That's the odd thing to me, how extremism at home is still being ignored. It's not just the crazy jihadis over there. They are here. We have politicians running for office saying globalize the intifada. We have kids on campus, often white kids, being pro-Hamas. People murdering as a political act again and again and again. Our dialogue is more extreme all the time. Our policies at home, the tariffs, the deportations, everything is extreme. For example, all this talk about Cruz and Carlson, but not for the reason that really should raise eyebrows, okay? There are a lot of reasons to back Israel as our main ally in the Middle East, okay? And to see the regime as a threat to us. But why is Senator Cruz getting crap for not knowing the population of the regime and not for this?
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis, but... So you're quoting a Bible phrase, you don't have context for it, and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused.
Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on.
Hold
on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
Seriously? The Bible says that's the basis for our policy or position on bombing, on who to support and who not? The Bible? He sounds more like one of them than one of us. We're not a theocracy. We're a democracy. We are fighting against the guys who use religion as a rationale, not trying to resemble them. You want to practice your faith? Great. Love mercy if you're a Christian. If you're a Catholic, that's what the Pope instructs. Be kind, live truth, but keep it to yourself. Not for policy for everyone else. That's what Islamists do. That's what the regime does, not democracy. So let's focus on the right guy and for the right reasons, okay? Tonight we have a very special show because it's an important moment. I've enlisted the three Americans for the hour: right, left, and really rich. The question of what to do abroad, what the law says, and what is being ignored here at home while we fixate on the Iranian regime. Bill O'Reilly, Democratic strategist James Carville, and the best-dressed man on television, Stephen A. Smith. Good to have each and all. I know you take that part hard, James, but you go to the LSU garb a little too often for me to make it your distinction. Let me start with you, Bill O'Reilly. We are told the president is weighing. What do you hear and understand about the variables?
I don't hear much. I did text him, and he did not answer. It's unusual. So what we have here is a conundrum. And Trump knows that if he launches military action, there are unintended consequences that will stem from that. But he doesn't know what those consequences are. The bluster about Iran attacking and doing damage, they're finished. My column on BillO'Reilly.com is the mullahs are done. They just don't know it yet. I think they may know it now. But I think the most important thing for Americans to consider is what is the right thing to do? We're being diverted by the usual dog and pony cliche on this isolationist versus evangelical Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, but it doesn't mean anything. What's the right thing to do? That's what all Americans should be asking right now. Doesn't matter who's president. So the right thing to do is to protect America first. That's the right thing to do. And then the second level of that is our ally, Israel, is in danger. And our enemy, Iran, is defiant. So I think we've given Iran an ultimatum. I know President Trump has. And I think that we keep that ultimatum. Because you're not talking about boots on the ground. You're not talking about an invasion. You're talking about bombing their nuclear capacity to dust.
Right.
Which is a good thing. It's a good thing. So let's just keep it very, very focused rather than all of these ridiculous diversions, many of which are used to make money, which really angers me.
100%, especially when it comes to digital media. I mean, everybody's pushing agendas that are outrage-based because that's how you get the clicks. James, let me ask you something. The Democrats here and Republicans in Congress, why are they skipping over the question of who is supposed to make this decision when it comes to the American military? I just heard on the last show a Republican member saying, well, if it goes on long enough, then he has to come to us. That is not the law.
Yeah, the War Powers Act, people will interpret it a different way. Presidents generally interpret that they have freedom that I tend to agree with you that they don't have. But I'd like to point out one thing that's missing here. This problem was solved. It was solved by President Obama. There were inspectors on the ground. We knew that they didn't have any nuclear weapons and they didn't have the capacity. Then President Trump, in his first term, pulled us out of the agreement. And now Tulsi Gabbard said in March that they're not close to a nuclear weapon. Who are we believing? I'm not saying they do or they don't. Are we believing governments that after the whole Iraq war, are we just taking the government's word that this is there? I mean, not only should Congress be involved, we should have congressional hearings before we fall off and start a war with a nation of 92 million people, of which half have a college education and half of those are females. There are 12,000 Iranian students in the United States. 6,000 are studying engineering at our universities. We better think about this, and we better think about where we're going from here, because we're not giving it very much thought. And I agree with you, Chris, that Congress ought to sit here, hold hearings, said how much of a threat is this? They can do that in 72 hours if they wanted to.
Stephen A.,
what go unquestioning into this? I don't think so.
Stephen A., what do you see in this dynamic?
Well, let me just say this. I'm pretty pissed off because I'm listening to James Carville right now, and I'm listening to Bill O'Reilly, and I have no question about their knowledge or anything. I'm not ticked off at them. I'm just saying that when James Carville sits up there and says this problem was solved, well, that's not the interpretation that we've received since Trump was in office the first go round. When we talk about our leadership being in place, you know, these guys are the experts. These guys know what the hell they're talking about. I'm a newbie to all of this, all right? I'm just an American citizen that votes, all right? And I'm paying attention to what's going on. So what's happening here? We have a situation where you've got Iran, there was supposed to be a nuclear threat. We have folks in the Jewish community where they're quoting Netanyahu from 2011 to 2014 to 2015 to 2018 saying the same thing he's saying now. And they're saying, well, what is true? We're looking at Obama. And just like, you know, when they talked about moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, that's what Trump did, even though George W. Bush, even though Obama obviously did not elect to do such a thing. So clearly, Trump is seen as being a bit more friendly to the Jewish community, to the state of Israel, than Obama or Biden or even George W. Bush was. So when James Carville comes and he says, okay, this was solved, you have other people saying it wasn't solved. I'm not saying James Carville is wrong. He might be absolutely right. But how the hell are we supposed to know? We're relying on our government officials. And here you are, Chris, you're hosting this show. And what are you talking about here? Who's going to make the decision? What? Who's going to make the decision? Who's the president of the United States? Who's the commander-in-chief? And oh, by the way, you've got, whether it's GOP or liberal members in Congress, in the Senate, these are our government officials that are supposed to be making the decision. And now you're telling me there's a whole bunch of people that's scared to make a damn decision. Well, how are the American people supposed to feel right now? I mean, we're sitting on the outside looking and relying on the level of expertise from these individuals, hoping their souls are in the right place and they're doing what's in the best interest of this country and this world. And here we are on the outside looking in, and what we're being told by experts like Carville, like Bill O'Reilly and others, is that there's trouble in making a decision. Well, by whom? Why? And when is that going to be alleviated? And if it can't be alleviated, how the hell are we supposed to feel good about the state of our country and its affairs right now? What the hell are we supposed to think?
I got you. I like the question. Hold on, Bill. I'll give you the answer as soon as we come back from break. Let me take the commercial break. We'll come right back. Bill O'Reilly will answer the question of whom are we supposed to trust in this moment? Who should be doing the job? What should we believe? 4 minutes and 35 seconds. The three Americans, right, left, and really rich. Next. We're back here on News Nation with Bill O'Reilly, Stephen A. Smith, and James Carville. James and Bill and Stephen and I were just talking. Stephen A. was lamenting that we're supposed to be able to trust the people we put into power to make these decisions. It seems like Congress is running away from their duty. The president is going through it while his base is fighting one another over what the right thing is. Bill O'Reilly wanted to say something right before the break. What was it?
Well, I want to reassure Stephen A. Smith, because that's my job in life now. I have to reassure Stephen A. when he gets agitated. So shortly after the 9/11 attack, Congress passed a resolution allowing the President of the United States to take military action against anyone or any nation that was using terrorism to threaten or harm the United States. That means that President Trump doesn't have to get congressional approval, because Iran is a nexus of terrorism. And everybody knows that with Hamas and Hezbollah. You could litigate it, but the Supreme Court would absolutely side with Trump. So doesn't have to do it, isn't going to do it.
We don't know that, by the way. That's an opinion, not a fact.
All right.
Go ahead.
That is an opinion, but I will bet you many, many dollars, and Stephen will lend me those dollars if it comes to that.
Well, I'll just say this. Congress disagreed with you. They finally got the House and the Senate to move against the 2001 and 2002 AUMFs as no longer extant, no longer relevant, and Trump vetoed it.
No, it's
and they
still
didn't
on
have
the
the
books.
votes. I know, because he vetoed it.
No, it's still on. Okay, it's still on the books.
Right, but I don't think it applies. I don't think it applies. Because he got Soleimani because of Iraq. Soleimani was in Iraq. Soleimani was the general of the Quds Force of Iran. Okay. He was in Iraq, so there was a loophole in the 2002. And the big thing was Congress didn't give a damn. They abdicated power to the president. I think that should end.
And they're not going to litigate this either. All right, so on the deal that Obama forged, here was the problem. The United States didn't have inspectors in there at all. And the UN was denied many times
True.
access to seeing what happened. All right, so that deal was a fraud. It was bogus. People don't know this, but when Obama signed the deal with the mullahs, and the mullahs were supposed to pull back their nukes, Obama sent a plane, a private plane, under the cloak of darkness, nobody knew about it, with $400 million in cash. In cash. It was a bribe. And then subsequently, $900 million more was transferred by the Obama administration to the mullahs. Mullahs used that money to weaponize Hamas, Hezbollah, and to buy the components needed to build the nuclear weapon, which they started working on in an undisclosed location that Mossad discovered. That is the Furlough Mountain place that, if President Trump launches, will be blown sky high by the United States. So all of this is very, very centers. Now, Trump pulled us out of the treaty because the Iranians were cheating. And then you had October 7th. That was the tip point for Israel.
All right.
And Israel said, hold it. Okay.
Let me
So
just
now
give a little
you
bit
have
of
a good basis.
Let me give a little bit of reporting that we're just getting from Axios, and then let's use it as grist for the mill here. This will confirm a lot of reasonable suspicions. And by the way, Stephen A., I think it's a confidence builder. The president is asking for a level of assuredness about what the bunker busters bomb will do and how you'll know if you were successful. And that happens to be the right question, because even though they have the capabilities of depth, you don't know unless you go in. And Israel is saying that they have their own human-based plan as a follow-up. So that's the state of play, which sounds to be reasonable. You can have your problems with that, but that's why they are taking their time in making the decision. James, let me bring you in on this about Bill's reasonable and not unusual criticism of what the Obama deal was, especially with the financing given back to the regime.
Okay, we have reputations. We're going to be fact-checked. It was called a Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It was negotiated by 7 or 8 different things. It was done in Vienna. It was widely assumed when he pulled out, and I think correctly, that Iran was in compliance. That is in error. There were inspectors in Iran at the time. Now let's talk about the $400 million and $900 million that President Obama sent to Iran. Do we know the story? Of course we know the story. That money was seized in 1979 when the Iranians seized our embassy. It was a negotiated part of the deal that money was being held in escrow in the United States and would be returned. So please, someone fact check me. There was a Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was negotiated by multiple countries. They were inspectors.
Yeah, you're right. They just weren't. They weren't American inspectors, but everything else you're saying is right.
Can I finish, and then you can say whether they're American? Hans Blix was not an American inspector. You know what he was? He was right about Iraq. Swedes know how to do weapons inspection. Swiss do. Japanese do. Koreans do.
I'm not disagreeing. Okay. I'm just saying you said they were American. They weren't American. I'm not disagreeing. Go ahead, James.
We can fact check.
All right,
somebody is right and somebody is wrong here. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the money that was sent by plane was money that was seized, probably correctly, by the United States and held in escrow, and it was a negotiated part of the settlement. It was a result of negotiations. And if we're going to go haul off and start a war, okay, with 92 million people, we better have our facts straight. The president better come forth and tell us why we're doing this. And, you know, if you have bunker buster bombs, they're not in infinite supply. You may need them some other place, too. I don't know all of this. And the Tulsi Gabbard in March said Iran was not close to producing a nuclear weapon. That's our own intelligence service. So there's a lot of things to flush out here before we go, why are we chickadee-dee? Let's haul off and start a war. We ought to think about it a little more.
Stephen A.
If you support the Jewish community and you are adamantly against terrorism, and you witnessed what transpired October 7th a couple of years ago, how Israel was invaded and how Hamas did what it did, and what sparked Netanyahu to take the kind of actions that he has taken, then certainly you look at this situation with Iran, which has obviously been a sworn enemy that's been chanting death to Israel and death to America for the longest time, and you want them to be dealt with. You want to side with the Jewish community. The problem is that you see folks supporting the Jewish community who are Jewish, and they're war hawks in a lot of people's eyes. And then you see others from the Jewish community that says, this is not what we want. This is not necessary. And so who are you to believe? When we bring in former administrations like Obama, like a George W. Bush, like others, and you say to themselves, and you say to yourself, they're a bit different from Trump. And you see Trump being pro-Israel in every way, where he's siding with Netanyahu on everything. And Netanyahu is perceived as being an individual that at all costs does not mind obliterating the opposition. It is clear he does not give a damn when it comes to that. He believes that he is absolutely right, and he is rigid. He is immovable in terms of his thinking. I'm saying, as American citizens, we have folks in the United States of America who are supporters of Trump, pro-MAGA, as they say, who are adamantly against his position to support Israel. They're saying, what about us? What about America?
He's got
and
MAGA people calling to impeach him over this.
Yes.
His own people.
You got that, exactly. Exactly. So when you look at it from that standpoint, little old me and everybody like me, because I represent about 99% of the American population who don't know the intricacies of politics the way you guys do, we're sitting back and saying, well, you make up your damn mind. We don't have a problem with America being looked out for. We don't have a problem with stepping our foot beyond being nationalists and getting global and having a globalist mentality and supporting our allies. But at what cost? How much money? How many lives lost? Are we making the right decision? And when those questions are still being asked and our own government is divided, we're not talking about left-right being divided here. We're talking about right being divided with right. That's what we're talking about in terms of the GOP side. They can't seem to make up their damn minds. Are we supposed to sit back and say, we literally are hearing pro-Trump supporters saying, trust him. God has placed his hand on Donald Trump. He is the right man for this. Just trust him. He deserves the benefit of the doubt. Are we sure about that? Are we sure? I mean, just think about that here. Then we see Obama giving a speech, what is it, last night or the night before, talking about how we're inching closer
to authoritarianism.
Towards authoritarianism. Yeah. All right, I mean, there's a lot of people who can dispute that when they think about some of the things he did when he was in office in terms of his executive power, whether it's gun control, labor relations, climate control, a host of other things. But we won't go there today. What I'm saying is, I sit here before y'all tonight, a very frustrated individual, because I'm down for whatever is in the best interest of the United States of America. If you're going to tell me we're finite and definitive in what our position should be, who the enemy is, and how we're supposed to address it, but at least be clear about, are you really a nuclear threat? Benjamin Netanyahu can't say the same thing in 2025 that he was saying in 2018, 2015, 2014, 2011, when you got people from the Jewish community pointing out, he's been saying this for quite some time. Right. I mean, you just don't know. That's the frustration. That's the frustration.
And yes, he's been saying it a long time. And yes, that clip that they're all sending around of me with him in 2018, I look like my own son, but that's because this job ages you. You should have seen Carville 7 years ago. He looked like Cary Grant. We're going to take a break. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Up next, we want to start talking about what we're not talking about, okay? You know, the president announced a major trade deal with Europe. What trade deal? Like, when he dropped the thing, all the pages were blank. Like, was there a really big deal that we don't know? Why did he change the ICE standard again about who to go after and who not? And why are the Democrats so quiet when they just may have pulled off the biggest protest in American history? We're not talking about any of this. Next. You know, for all the media we have, we got a bad habit of being way too myopic. You know, we just get on one thing and that's it. We forget about everything else. The No Kings protests last weekend are believed to have been the biggest single day protests in our history. Crickets. The ICE mandate shifted. The president put out a message to what seemed reasonable, right? Getting back to what was promised, go after criminals, not those building our communities. But then all of a sudden it just slammed back to an extreme position of going after everybody. And then this moment at the G7 summit Monday between the president and the British Prime Minister. Watch this. Nobody's talking about it. That was blank. I mean, you can't make it up. Let me bring back Bill, Stephen A., and James. I mean, it was blank, Bill, and I'm trying to get details on what the deal is. Nobody will talk to me about it. He says at a press conference, we got a great deal. It's fair for both sides. I don't know that there is any deal. What do you understand this to be?
Well,
how should we take it?
I'm not paying attention to it right now. I'll get around to it. But I am worried about my man, Stephen A. I'm worried. Just three things, and then we'll get to the no kings. Number one, the Iranians cheated on the Obama deal. Everyone knew it. That's why Trump pulled out. Okay? Number two, 79% of the American people, according to CNN today, supports preventing Iran from getting a nuke. And number three, Stephen A., and this is most important, the Muellers don't deny they have the nuclear capacity. They just say, we're going to use it for peaceful purposes. So we're going to protect the camels with it. We're not going to do anything bad with it. So when you have a plurality like that, what the press is doing, and Cuomo is playing into this a little bit, is saying, oh, there's this big division in MAGA. No, there's not. There are a few isolationists. All of the people who don't want Trump to bomb Iran want the United States to pull out of Ukraine. All of them. Mm-hmm. They're isolationists.
That's true.
Okay, and they're entitled to their opinion, but it is not a mass opinion. All right, no kings. I'm just going to make one point, and then you guys can do what you want with it. 75 million Americans voted against Donald Trump. 75 million voted for Kamala Harris. That was before Trump used Homeland Security to deport undocumented migrants, which has inflamed the Democratic Party and the progressive movement, who don't want that. So what did anybody expect? You think this is new? This wasn't surprising. What was surprising is outside of Los Angeles, all of the other demonstrations were pretty responsible. Mm-hmm. And I was impressed by that. I like dissent. But there's always a context to something, Stephen A., and that is the most important thing for you to understand tonight. And I'm glad I could participate in making you feel better.
James, you still with us? I thought I thought your head nodded down for a second. I thought I lost you. All right, good.
No, I'm right here. I'm right here. Yeah. Well, first of all, it was widely assumed that Iran was in compliance. Now, we can be fact-checked. Either O'Reilly's right or Carville's right. That can be settled by people who have access to information in real time. Secondly, there's always been an isolationist strain in the Republican Party, and particularly in the conservative movement in the United States. We can go all the way back to Charles Lindbergh if anybody wants to do that. I knew Tucker Carlson very well at a time in my life. He was a very good friend of mine. I still consider Tucker to be a friend. What he was saying to Ted Cruz is consistent with what he was saying in the green room in 2002. He's always been pretty isolationist. He's fairly much of a pacifist when it comes to this. I'll let Tucker defend his positions. I'm not here to defend Tucker, but I am here to say that is consistent with him. And a lot of people beat the war drums to death in the war with Iraq, which turned out to be, honestly, one of the great disasters in American foreign policy history. So before we head first into this, and I'm not saying that it could be something we find as a justification, but we better get our ducks in a row. And before we haul off and start a war with a nation of 92 million people, we better know what we're doing and what are the potential consequences. And they were in compliance.
I'm with you. Stephen A., just for context for our conversation for the audience, the Trump administration had certified that Iran was in compliance with the major points of the deal before he pulled out, right before, like a month before. The problem was that they believed that two things could be true at the same time, which was they were in compliance with the deal to the extent that they could check. But that there was an unknown, and that since then there has been a quick ramping up in their capabilities that is suggestive that maybe they were being deceived at the time, which the Trump administration used as cover for getting out. But let's be honest, Trump got out of that deal for the same reason Biden canceled all the home country deals on the border. It was political payback. That was a part of this also. Stephen, go ahead.
Political payback, okay, that's fine. And, surprise, surprise there, a nation that tried to assassinate our president couldn't be trusted. Okay, so, I mean, there's no surprise there. I think that when you look, I hear what James is saying, and I certainly understand where Bill O'Reilly is coming from. And however, when you look at what Netanyahu was saying and what Trump was trying to say, all I'm trying to say to you is this. If they're close to getting a nuclear weapon, obviously nobody should want that in the hands of Iran. So when Netanyahu says we're going to do everything that we can to prevent it, and Trump is supporting them being on the front lines in terms of attacking Iran, I don't think anybody can deny that. And I think that when you see the isolationists in this country taking the position that they're taking, what they're saying is that they don't want America involved to that extent, because ultimately, if Arab nations around the world rally in support of Iran, and I'm not saying that that's the case, but you never know. The point is, if that becomes the case, and then you make yourself even more of an enemy of hundreds of millions, if not billions, of folks around this world because of the position that you take in your support of Israel. All of those things need to come into play when we decide what we want to do. I'm not saying that's not the case. I'm saying I find it very concerning that it doesn't seem to be unanimity when it comes to that, when it doesn't seem to be everybody's all on board. The folks that are hawkish on the right compared to the isolationists, I don't think there should be a divide. The fact that there is a divide does make things a bit uncomfortable, because now you're looking for what's the greatest side of right here. And then you're looking at the president of the United States, who has his critics and stuff like that. And you're saying, wait a minute, who am I to trust? And that's a huge concern. Then we go to the No Kings protest, okay? We understand what the Democratic Party is doing. They're rallying behind this issue. Obviously, they're they're supportive of migrants and what have you, and we know what Trump's position has been. He's been consistent in that regard, but I think that you sort of protest because you sent in, what is it, 4,000 National Guardsmen and 700 Marines, and you're looking at it from that standpoint. I don't think we see Obama giving a speech about authoritarianism
if that hadn't happened.
If that stuff doesn't occur.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
If that hadn't happened. The fact that it happened was concerning the people, because you're looking at the streets of America being occupied by National Guardsmen and Marines, and that gives the veneer, the complexion, the imagery that we're not comfortable with in the United States of America. And once again, we're looking for answers and we're looking for closure, and we're not getting it from our elected officials. Right. And that's where the discomfort comes from.
Right. And a lot of this is also a little bit of a deception campaign, and I mean that with a small d, nothing too nefarious. But I don't believe there was a trade deal with the UK. I don't believe that the other trade deal that was supposedly made with China is real. I think that they're moving along, but I think it matters. Here's why. Until you act in Iran, and now we're going to go to break, until you act in Iran, nothing has changed. But on the economy, it changes minute by minute because of the trading. And every time Trump says something, it creates a catalytic effect within the markets. So he says he has a deal with Europe. He doesn't. He says he has a deal with China. He doesn't. And it matters because it's going to mess with people's 401ks. All right, let's take a break. There are 2 minutes. I'm going to give them to these guys when we come back. Stay with us. Final thoughts. James Carville.
My final thought is we need a compelling reason to go to war with a nation, 92 million people. No compelling reason has been presented thus far. I think we all have an obligation to listen to what people have to say. We all have an obligation to be skeptical. And the argument for regime change, the guy's 86 years old. God got his own schedule for regime change. I don't know if we need to accelerate it, but when I see a good argument, I'll be for this. I have not seen a compelling argument to haul off and start a war with this.
And good luck to your team. I know you're watching that game. 1-0 Arkansas.
Stephen A. Thank you, Stephen A. Thank you, Bill O'Reilly. Glad to not be downwind of Stephen A. anymore.
Well,
great commentator. Can't stand morning, Stephen A.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you so much. Listen, I just think that, listen, I'd listen to you three any day before I listen to the politicians on Capitol Hill who can't seem to make up their damn mind to save their life. That's what it is. I mean, I'm listening to James Carville, I'm listening to Bill O'Reilly, I'm listening to Chris Cuomo, and I'm hearing more and learning more from what y'all are saying than they'll ever tell us as American citizens. And I think that's the scary part. People who are not worthy of our trust are asking us to trust them to make the right decisions. And they don't seem to have a rhyme or reason to anything that they're doing half the time. That's my concern as we embark upon things in the future.
Big Bill.
Iran regime change is necessary for the world. It'd be a good thing. They are trying to develop a nuclear weapon. The intel is overwhelming. Appeasement never works for the isolationists. James Buchanan allowed the South to rise in ferocity. Neville Chamberlain appeased Hitler. After World War II at Yalta, FDR let Stalin do whatever he wanted. And the Chinese right at this moment, because I was there 3 weeks ago, are watching very closely what happens in Ukraine and Iran. And any weakness shown by us, you can kiss Taiwan goodbye.
Heavy. Thank you very much,
Chris?
Bill O'Reilly. Stephen A., yeah, man.
I was getting ready to say, I know a little something about the Yalta conference thanks to Mr. Bill
That's
O'Reilly.
exactly right.
I have to give him credit for
James
that.
Carville.
And I am calm, Bill. I am fine.
You are.
And that's my job.
You are bridled rage.
That's
bridled
why I'm
rage.
here.
That's why we love you.
Right.
Gentlemen, each and all, thank you. The three Americans. We'll be right back.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.